forgotten truth. The secret of the fallen goddess. There were 12 of them, the Olympian gods. You surely know them by name. Zeus, Hera, Ares, Athena, Apollo. But there's something strange. In the earliest lists, there was another figure. Quiet, silent, sitting by the hearth. Her name was Hestia, and she was among the 12, until she was crossed out. Someone might say, yes, they simply replaced her with Dionysus. He's more fun after all. But if you look closer, this wasn't a simple replacement. It's as if someone cut a line about the heart of the state from the Constitution. Soft, unnoticed, but central. This film is about how one goddess symbolized everything that held ancient Greece together, and how she was quietly removed. Hestia was the eldest daughter of the Titans Kronos and Rhea. The first child swallowed by her father when he became terrified of the prophecy that one of his sons would overthrow him. Kronos devoured his children as soon as they were born, and Hestia was the first victim, and then the last to be freed when Zeus forced his father to vomit up the swallowed gods. This creates a paradox that the Greeks remembered, first and last. This wasn't just a poetic image, it was a ritual principle. Every sacrifice, every prayer began with Hestia and ended with her. She was the alpha and omega of religious life, the sacred interface without which nothing worked. But if Hestia's birth symbolizes the beginning, then her virginity symbolizes the prevention of chaos. In the myth, she rejects two gods, Poseidon and Apollo, not because they displease her, but because each of them represents alliance, politics, power. By remaining outside marriage, she steps outside all conflicts. Not an ally, not an opponent. She's outside the Olympian Game of Thrones. But this isn't just a personal choice. This is a religious political position. As French anthropologist Jean-Pierre Vernant wrote, Hestia is the center of the world, the axis mundi. Her vow of celibacy is the architecture of ritual neutrality. Historian Walter Burkert noted, in Greek society, the hearth is a sacred place, and it cannot be captured by anyone's alliance. Hestia must be for everyone. Marcel Détienne states directly, Hestia's vow is a political act. In myths, marriages are alliances. Look at Zeus and Hera, or Aphrodite and Ares. But Hestia? She becomes available to all because she belongs to none. Nicole Leroux points out, her image is abstract. She has almost no anthropomorphic features. Because she's not a character, she's a space, she's fire. In every home, there was a hearth, and in it she lived. Not metaphorically, literally. The Greeks believed that Hestia was that fire. You could be a slave or a warrior, a woman or an old man. You approached the hearth, and she was with you, patron of all and none. Then they scaled this model up. Hestia's hearth was placed at the center of the city, the Prytaneum, the council building, the seat of power, and in it burned the eternal flame. And when Greeks created colonies, they didn't take a flag with them, but Hestia's fire. This was an act of ritual transmission of citizenship. A new polis began with flame. This wasn't just a cult. This was the operating system of Greek civilization. Just as Hestia's fire moved from the home to the center of the polis, emphasizing that the polis is one family, so too, by carrying this fire, the Greeks emphasized continuity of culture and tradition. Around Hestia's fire, all citizens are kin. And so, entering new worlds, Greeks often invited barbarian chiefs beside the family hearth, not as a declaration of abstract equality, but as a powerful political gesture. Join our order, and you can partake in our prosperity. This manifested in the flexibility of beliefs. Take the goddess Tyche, who transformed as Hellenistic culture moved east, absorbing traits of many local deities. She even grew a beard. This Hestian model, at its core, is a framework for cultural integration. It's a guarantee to listen in order to find a common language. It's a kind of national vibe. Empire through pragmatic adaptation rather than brute force. Of course, Greeks weren't free from all traits inherent to humanity. They too committed various atrocities, but their central worldview, built around dialogue within the family, then the polis, then extrapolated to inter-ethnic relations, this behavior sharply differed from the conquest model of, for example, the Neo-Assyrian Empire. There, the state acted purely as military force. The defeated could expect nothing good. Cities were razed to their foundations. Inhabitants were either killed or enslaved. The Greeks offered a new model of communication with the world. Not just submit or die, but sit by our fire and let's discuss the terms of your participation in our world. This wasn't weakness. This was technology. A social technology that worked better than bronze swords. And now the question, if she was so important, why was she so often overlooked? Of course, there's the official version. Dionysus's cult became more popular. He's brighter, more theatrical, sexier. And Hestia? Well, fire and silence. But let's look broader. Greeks weren't just about war. They were about expansion. And it had two wings, the army and a cultural system into which you could be included without violence. Hestia's fire was the perfect tool of this inclusion. It wasn't imposed, it invited. It said, sit by the hearth, share the meal, you belong. Bloodless sacrifices, rituals without fear, the image of family, understandable even to a barbarian. This worked better than any archaic imperial model. In a Greek camp at a Scythian chief's feast, Hestia's fire, not a sword, not an order, an invitation. And now look, those who didn't accept this model paid dearly. Syracuse without Hestia, rebellions. Alexander, the Seleucids, the Ptolemies carried her fire in their armies, not as a goddess, but as a protocol, as a coordination system. Rejection of cultural expansion in its soft form always ended badly. Not just for barbarians, for the Greeks themselves too. So maybe Hestia was removed because she too clearly showed that the Greeks' main weapon wasn't the spear, but the hearth. That empire begins not with an order, but with a meal. And if this is true, then we're dealing not with a forgotten goddess, but with a removed element of the cultural operating system. Removed, so no one would figure out how it worked. Hestia isn't just a goddess. She's a multi-layered tradition that cemented Greek society, in the family, in the polis, in colonies, through the hearth around which life was built. Greeks spread influence not through fear, but through ritual. They didn't conquer, they included. The mother fire was transmitted to ships, settlements, new cities, and each time it became the center of a new world. Hestia demanded no sacrifices. She offered, sit, share food, let's talk. A meal with a foreigner by the hearth became an act of alliance. Cultural expansion began with bread and ash. No wonder such a goddess, quiet, but working like a perfect assimilation machine, was decided to be removed from the official showcase. The Greeks perhaps intuitively understood. The main weapon shouldn't be obvious. And here's the irony. What the Greeks removed, the Romans picked up. They not only adopted Hestia's cult under the name Vesta, they built it into the state. Vesta's priestesses became civil servants, and the fire in the temple became a repository of contracts, wills, state will. Rome did what the Greeks didn't dare, recognized the cult of soft power as official religion, and held the empire not only with legions, but with that fire that had to burn always, as long as the Republic lived. Hestia retreated into shadow, but her flame burns still, in symbols, in institutions, in the idea of home as a point of reference. She didn't disappear. She simply became the system. And now the question, do you see her? Or are you still looking at those who are louder?